Ever wish you could cut through multiple surfaces with one component? Well, with the DoubleCut plugin, you can. It uses the feature of SketchUp's Glue To setting to allow you to cut through multiple surfaces. Without the plugin, you typically get dealt with options like this, where you have to move the window and you also have to move the rough opening. And this can be really tricky because you have to really get in there and select the proper surfaces. And then that way you move the rough opening and then hopefully move the window in the proper space. So that's a bit of a pain. With the DoubleCut plugin, you can essentially use that Glue To property and the plugin will automatically create the opening for you. So let's take a look at how it works. I'm first going to draw a rectangle, and let's first just look at it purely as a way to create a cut opening. So not so much as taking an existing Glue To model, but more of just actually how to use it purely for an opening tool. So I'll draw that rectangle, I'll click the paint bucket, and let's just make a material that has 0 opacity. Essentially, it's a surface that we can click on, but it's not a surface that has any sort of material. And let's bring this down to maybe 0. There we go. So you can essentially see through that surface. But again, it is a surface there on that material. So I'm going to double click on the surface. I'm then going to right click. I'm going to make this a component. And I'm going to call this opening. I'm going to make sure it's a cut opening, and that's really the trick here. Because with this set as a cut opening, when it creates the component, it also generates the inside faces and a group inside of this. So if we can hide this for a second. So it creates this. It's essentially a locked group that's created from this surface. So now how does it work from there? If we take that surface, think of it just as that surface plane. So don't really treat it as the entire opening. Just treat it as that blank surface. If I move and copy this over, it's going to create that opening. And I can do 3x since I need multiple ones of these. So now that component that I have, which I believe we called as opening, there it is. I can use that in other locations, even like the doorway here. And think of it again, just as that single plane. So I could take the scale tool, scale it up, and have it match the guides. And the plugin will automatically resize based on the movement, or in this case, the scale that I do. So it's really effective in using purely as a rough opening tool. And because you're not hiding the surface, but you still have sort of the plane there, you can select it, and later if you move this design, you can just slide it over and that rough opening is going to move with you. So one way that I like to do this is purely as a rough opening tool like this. And then once I have my rough opening set, that's where, and let's make this one unique. That way it's separate from these ones, because if I go in here and modify the internal geometry, if I didn't make this one unique, so let's just undo that. So if I didn't make that unique, it would adjust all those changes with all of them. So it's good to keep your components nice and clean. In this case, making this one unique keeps these 4 together. So now with these 4, if I'm adding new detail to this, I'm going to leave this rough opening surface here, but I can add any new components within this or layer any geometry on top of it. So I can drop this window right in. make it part of that rough opening component. And now as I move that, it all updates. So it's using that plane to our advantage. So again, use this purely first as a way to create the rough opening, and then second as a way to then embed your window detail. Now the only catch for door openings is that the surface is going to show this plane here. So it's essentially showing this ground plane here. It's not, you don't want to delete it because then it ruins that opening. So for doorways, what I typically like to do is once you have them set, it's not that often that your doorway is going to move or adjust. So once you have it set, take that object. I can just go in and view it from this side. That's much better. So I'm going to select that locked group. I'm going to right click either on the object and unlock it, or I could do it in Outliner as well. So I'm going to unlock it, and then I'm going to explode it. So this is good if you want to be able to then erase this bottom edge. You're essentially now making that geometry all part of that object. So let's do that again. So we have the cut opening surface, which is here, and maybe we can move it back where we originally wanted it. Then I'm going to go on the inside so I can select this surface. I'm going to unlock it, and then I'll explode it. That way I can erase that bottom surface. And I'll also erase the plane now, since we no longer need this cut opening entity. So that's how you can use the DoubleCut plugin to create some rough openings that move dynamically with your opening. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.